Like, hey, you better be doing it earlier.
Yeah.
Because later, when you actually maybe do want them, your body will be like, we're shutting down shop
yeah,
now. What do you mean?
true.
I didn't think of it like, oh my God, I can't wait. But I did think, well, duh. Like
At
I said,
some
it's going to
point,
happen. At
yeah.
some point, I'm going to have kids. I'm going to get married. I'm going to have kids.
I'm going to get married by 25 and then
Yeah.
have like kids. I think I've said that, I'm sure.
I remember you wanted a minivan, Rumbi. Who was going to fill up that minivan?
I just like rolling in a minivan, like to look like a mom. But it's fun being an aunt.
Yes.
I'll say I enjoy that.
Mama always said, be careful of those island boys.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
And I'm Rimby.
Welcome to It's Layered Podcasts.
We're a part of the Black Cast Network, powered by iHeart, and today we're recording live in studio in Melbourne.
Yay! Okay, I'm going to get over actually saying to you, welcome to Melbourne, Rimby, because I feel like by this time in the season of this podcast, we now all know Rimby's here in Melbourne with us with this beautiful setup at Pink Lady Picnics.
Shout out to them. And we're at Bittersweet Studios.
Black on black on black is what Rimby was trying
I was saying
to say.
black-owned, female-led businesses.
Yes. We're all about that.
Got there eventually.
All about that.
All about it.
Isn't it so funny? We've talked about weddings, we've talked about Rora, we've talked about motherhood.
Yep.
But then when we talked about motherhood with Score, shout out to her.
Yeah.
We never actually talked about that decision you make on whether or not you want to have kids.
And the crazy thing is, I'm at that point in my life where I'm like, how do people actually decide? Because I don't have children yet, right? Like, what is the thinking when people say, I'm ready or I want to have kids?
And do you think, probably, maybe I'm being very general here, but the first time ever as Black women, we actually have the choice?
I think so. I think for our parents' generation,
No.
it was you have to bear an heir.
Yeah,
Like you just,
and if you don't, there's a problem, quote
yes.
unquote.
And it's usually the woman's fault when
Oh,
we all know.
always, right? As
Look
if
what
low
Henry
sperm
the-
count
was it
doesn't
Henry
happen.
the Eighth?
Yeah,
Who
right. Or you only
couldn't get
bear
a
me
boy?
daughters. What
Yeah.
a waste! And it's like it's the man actually, but anyway.
True. So
Yeah.
did you know you always wanted to have kids?
You know, look, I think growing up in that context, patriarchal context, kids are everywhere. Do you even have a choice not to? I think I only thought not to once I got to Australia.
Okay.
So I'd say growing up, I always thought, I didn't think of it like, oh my God, I can't wait. But I did think, well, duh. Like
At
I said,
some
it's going to
point,
happen. At
yeah.
some point, I'm going to have kids. I'm going to get married. I'm going to have kids. Even though my dating life in Zimbabwe would not have told you any of that was happening. But you know what I mean? Like, it just felt like, of course, that's going to happen at some point. And only maybe as I got older was I like, I'm going to have 4.
Wait, what? You said you wanted 4 children?
4, and then I was like, no, actually, I want 6, and then 2, I'm going to
what?
adopt.
Okay.
That was my
I think
thing.
I've heard
I
that
adopt
adoption
2,
part, yes.
and then 4.
You're gonna
Joke
give birth?
on a my is all I can say.
4 kids, yo. You know my grandma gave birth to 11 children, bruh.
Woo!
I don't know, her poor vagina and, sorry, grandma, and uterus.
Sorry, grandma's vagina, but yeah.
Yo, yucks. No, I mean, those who have more than, good for you.
But 11 is
the
a
reality
whole-
just...
Actually, talking about that, our parents' generation had lots, like siblings upon siblings.
True.
Like, I think generally you'd find like people who have 5 kids were like, oh, only 5.
Yes.
Like you didn't go for a football team,
Yes,
you know.
which is wild. Which is wild.
Like 7 and 9 were like pretty much standard.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know whether I always wanted to have kids. I think that whole notion is like, I'm going to get married by 25 and then have like kids. I think I've said that, I'm sure.
I remember you wanted a minivan, Rumbi. Who
like-
was going to fill up that minivan?
I just like rolling in a minivan, like to look like a mom. But now I've upgraded.
Okay.
My dream car is a G-Wagon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
I roll with that.
That
I
would
roll
be
with
my
that.
I
I roll more with that than the minivan.
Why are you hating on my minivan?
I remember when you said that, we were all like,
Yeah, literally my friends were like, why is that your dream car? I guess the dream of having a family.
yeah, soccer mom.
Now I'm like, I'm good. I'm joking. Yeah, but now I don't know. I don't think I've ever had an itch to be like, I want to be a mom like yesterday.
How do you think one does decide if they want to have kids
These are
or not
questions.
have kids?
These are questions I need answers to because I think now that I'm closer to the sort of
have to make a
place
decision.
of, I'm now like, but actually, what's the thought process behind this? What are you supposed to consider? And me being a type A personality and a perfectionist and a control, I'm like, what are the things I need to go through in making this decision to have the children?
Yeah.
So I would love for you to answer that first.
You know what? Even though I have one child, I don't really think. Obviously, you decide at some point.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was this huge aha moment.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like, should we have? And then, oh, that's how it felt. And definitely going through a pandemic, you kind of like question what is life?
True.
Where is life? There's more to life. And we decided to go down. I always liken it to, it's almost like you have a house, right? And you don't know how many bedrooms or rooms are in this house. And you can live your life in only your 2 rooms and not even realize.
Yeah.
And then once you open your room to that third room, the door to the third room, you're like, this too. My life is even a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
But you still could have lived your life perfectly with
With
only
just the
your 2
2
rooms. And then each child opens a different door. And then you experience more of the house. But it's not to say you couldn't just live your life.
You aren't a house.
Yeah.
You aren't a
people
family.
think, now that I have a kid, I'm pro having kids. I'm not. I'm still pro works
For you.
So for some people, those 2 rooms are like, this is my max, this is enough for me, and I'm gonna live my life in the fullest and furnish these 2 rooms the best I can.
Yeah.
And for some, it's like I want all the doors open and all the rooms occupied. And that's how but either way, your house
Still functions.
Yeah.
I think for me, as I ponder this, I think a lot of it has to do with like my readiness in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I think the partner I chose was kind of
Clutch
helped inform
when it comes to having
that
kids, your
because
partner?
I'm thinking about, would this partner make a good dad?
Yeah.
And would I carry most of the load alone? And do you understand? So I think subconsciously, even when I was choosing my partner, I was thinking like, I could see him being a good dad. Okay, that also helps. I love him because he has these qualities. For myself, I think in some weird way, with some form of body dysmorphia, I was like, when I get a 6-pack, then I'll have a kid, because then muscle memory, then after, it's really dumb. It's really, really stupid. Yes, Amanda just gave like a blank stare at me. But I think
The overthinker and Rumbi.
of like, my body can come back.
Yeah.
I guess,
Girl.
Essentially, it's a fear of losing self.
Yes.
That's what
Which happens.
Which happens with having children. And then I think trying to heal wounds, childhood wounds, traumas, also.
Get a do-over, but
I think that's because you've seen what has been passed on.
Know better, do better kind of thinking.
And generational quote-unquote curses and like difficulties. So you work to try and undo those. And when you do that, you feel like, okay, maybe I'll be a better prepared parent.
Yeah.
I still don't know if I'm ready to be a parent, to be fair. But I think some of my decisions and the things I'm doing in my life help.
It's just unfortunate, right? Because it's not really a decision you can take back. And I feel like now that I'm a parent and I talk to other parents, it's like if they know now what they know now, would they, and some people are really honest. And I love that about our generation. I feel like our parents' generation are very like, oh no, I would never think that. And they make you feel so guilty for even having any sort of negative thoughts. You can still, 2 things, you can still love your child and still think, I have been pushed to my max. Yeah. And I think it's same. I mean, with marriage, I guess you can divorce or something, but with having kids, it's literally for life.
For life.
So
moment for life.
You cannot take it back. But yeah, in some ways, people don't know what they don't know, right?
True. So true. But why is there a pressure to procreate? Especially in our modern world.
I know, with the billion people. How many are we now in the world?
And I think our parents, like at least my grandparents, it was like a retirement plan, right? That they had X amount of kids. These kids would all take care of them and, provide for them.
And typically help around the house. Like the older sibling would usually be the one taking care of the youngest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So but why the pressure to procreate, even in this modern age where you can live life fully
Yeah.
without the
Without
need.
the kids. You know, I think it's like similar to what we talked about on the weddings episode, where it's a stamp of your relationship,
True.
stamp of the existence of your love,
Yeah.
stamp of
That you
on-
actually have sex.
yeah,
Which is
exactly.
wild.
Some stamp of on some level you're healthy, your generation, your genes, your what carries on.
Yeah.
And I think it's still a primal thing, even though, and I think it's just society pressure as well. Like, you know, if you're the only couple and all your couple friends are having kids,
Yeah.
it only like, oh well, now we must do because everyone is doing, you know,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
and I think that's why episodes like this are really good because you take a moment to be like, but why?
And I think it's a bit of vanity, right?
Yeah,
You want
oh,
to see
definitely.
yourself in another, and you wonder how much will they look like me? What qualities will they get from me? Sometimes I'm like, they don't need these qualities like from me. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think
Yeah, and I think like what you said as well before about, you know, seeing yourself in someone or
Yes.
just, yeah, you're just like, can I do this?
Yeah.
And what will it look like? You know, just experience of.
I really think procreation is a selfish decision
Yeah.
in a way. Like, obviously, when you're raising a child, it's very selfless because you have to put their needs and things first. But to bring someone into the world, maybe it's because we grew up being told, you know, that you should be grateful you're here, what. Do you get what I mean? Like, where it's like, I didn't choose to be here. Y'all made that decision
and here
to
I
bring
am.
me in. So it is, I think, a selfish decision that requires selfless action. Does that make sense? So it's like, you know, Jerome didn't say, "Mommy, Daddy,
Yeah, make
bring me
me."
into the world," but you were like, "I think I can do this, and I
Yeah.
want to bring this new life in."
Yeah.
But ultimately, had you not,
Yeah.
Jerome didn't have a say.
Yeah. And similar to weddings, it's the proof of your love, right?
Yeah.
Some people think weddings, the bigger the better. So for kids, it's like the more we have, or, you know,
The more our love
or,
is true.
or you get to the point you're like, we're financially stable, we're financially this,
Yeah.
what's next? And usually in relationships, after the wedding, after the marriage, that's what next is
Is it? Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna play not devil's advocate, but what's the opposite? Angel's advocate? God's advocate? I don't know what the opposite is. But I think we're looking at it in very like practical terms. But I think people also have children. There's an element of like an extension of love and bringing good people
Yeah.
into the world. Not every,
Yeah.
trust me, I don't think everyone feels this way because we've questionable
And some
parenting
people,
and
it's
all
a
that.
mistake, yeah. So
Exactly. But I think there's an element of like giving unconditional love and that
Yeah.
agape.
Yeah.
What's the parental one? Anyway, that love, like, and some people feel maybe they're making the world a better place
oh, definitely.
and showing love. Some people really feel called to
called
having
upon.
children, to
Lots
pour
of 'em.
into pour into others. Yeah, like I
Yeah.
think we're looking at it very practical, but I do
Yeah.
think there's some people who feel they
And
are
also, there's
called.
also the pressure. I mean, we come from Zimbabwe where abortions are not freely accessible.
True.
There's also the pressure of it just happening, and then what do you do now? So people being thrown and thrust
Yes.
into it as well, making a stupid decision, and then that leads to consequential. You know, you got a kid now.
Yeah.
There's a huge. I mean, teenage pregnancies was not uncommon.
Not at
where
all.
we come from. So there's like a whole array of different pressures on why we procreate.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's such a, in my opinion, in some forms, such a privilege and a Western thing to have the time to ponder and
Yeah.
think. And that's why I think we are the first generation to, because I'm
Really?
pretty sure our moms would have just been like, well, that's what you do. you know?
Literally, I've had it before. Like, I was talking to someone older, working with them, and they're like, "Oh, do you have kids?" Because they knew I was married. They're like, "Oh, do you have kids?" And I was like, "No." Then she just like looked at me and she was like, why?" And I was like, "I just not ready." And she looked quite perplexed. Like,
What does
what
that
do you
mean?
mean? Like, that's just a natural progression.
Yeah.
And then I think she did bring herself, like pull herself back, rein herself in a little. And she was like, "Okay, you're still young, like you have time." But I
Yeah.
think in her brain, automatically, like you get married, you have kids. No,
Yeah,
it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. And obviously, you've brought up age. some people do think that, like, hey, you better be doing it earlier.
Yeah.
Because later, when you actually maybe do want them, your body will be like, we're shutting down shop
yeah,
now. What do you mean?
true.
So I feel like all our older moms are also in that respect wiser, but they don't know how to articulate it, where they're like, okay, you can wait, but you can only wait so long. Trust me, but then it's like, how do you put that pressure?
And I think also we just in society, the pressure of child rearing is on parents now a lot more.
Yeah.
Community is, especially if you don't live in a community like in Zimbabwe, near parents, near family, near a support system, that burden falls on you as parents. So the financial concern is much bigger now. And so typically you need to work longer to make the finances. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So now we have to, things are extending because of that. Because if you have a kid without that financial standing, how are you going to take care of them and work without community and support?
Yeah.
So many factors.
You think too much. Pretty much.
You think
more than, at
Prior.
home. Yeah. Do you reckon it's anyone's business, all right, to comment on whether or not you have kids, or in my case, siblings for my kid?
If your DNA is going to be, it's not going to be, okay, there's also adoption.
Yeah, but what about grandparents?
There's also, like, if you're not going to carry the child, like, you're not fusing the sperm and the egg yourself, or you're not going to walk through the adoption process, or do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't think it's truly your business. You can allude to wanting to saying you would love grandchildren, or love a niece or nephew, or it's great, or to say I will support you in raising your children. You're welcome to do that. But as I've just said, because I think the pressure falls a lot on the immediate parents, I think ultimately that decision needs to be theirs.
Okay.
Because there's also health issues, right?
Yeah. But I mean, to play devil's advocate as you were, what if it's your partner who's commenting on, like, but I want kids and you don't want, or you're not on the same page, essentially?
Yeah. I mean, typically you try to do that before you, like, partner up or, get married. However,
do people do they though? Do people have these hard conversations?
It's compromise, right? Like, you can be like, I'm having a kid in like 10 years, and then the partner's like, I want it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, you have to come to like a bridging point, because then often that leads to like complete separation if you can't come.
I feel like for people who are like undecided, or someday, it's a bit, but there are some people who are clear no's.
Yeah.
And I think, unfortunately, with the way things are set up, the people who are clear no's or clear yeses with a clear no person, you probably have to, as Rimbi said, talk about it at length before marriage. Because if your feelings are not going to change of no kids, or yes kids with a no kids person, it can definitely lead to a lot of bumping heads.
And resentment.
Yeah.
And you hold on to the hope they will change their mind, and they never will. Or then you get trapped.
Yeah.
Like them basketball players. You know what I mean? So I think it's only fair. It's not fair if you know and you mislead the other person, and vice versa.
Yeah. And I think, speaking on that, trapping, because you talked about the pressure to procreate, some people do feel pressure to, my kid will get better, will do better. So then obviously they try position themselves in that like,
way.
Okay, if I marry a basketball player, or if I get a kid by a basketball player or whatever,
I'm set for life.
Which
is sad.
Really,
very sad. And how do you feel like this notion of legacy or inheritance, is it outdated? Do you feel like we put too much legacy? Who was that? Jay-Z? Someone said. How is mental health or financial wealth like playing its part, or living away from your village? It takes a village to raise a child. How is that all playing a part? Like, are we holding on to legacy, our future generations, our surnames going on for generations to come?
I definitely think we do put a lot of weight. And I think living in diaspora, for me especially, has shown me your family does not have to be blood. So because of that thinking, it's like then legacy and inheritance, and you could be killing yourself. I mean, both of us have, parents with farms, killing yourselves getting these farms. But do we want to now be on your farm?
Yeah.
So it's like, I feel like before it was always assumed, family business, you would carry it on. assume. But now we're living in a world where people are open, people are exposed to other ideas. So I
Yes.
think the idea that what you're doing now in 2024, 2025 will be relevant in 2040, 2045 for your kid
Yes. It's
might
a far
not
cry.
be.
And also, I think to that point around legacy, it's also changed, right? Because the way, and I speak from a millennial standpoint, we are now also taking care of our parents, right? So there's an onus on us to sort of do a lot more for our parents in an economic climate that is not what it was when our parents were at their peak, you
Yeah.
know, earning stage.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's like I need to help them, and because coming from a country like Zimbabwe where the economy is trash, you really have to step up. And then
Yeah.
now you have to raise children at the same time. Sometimes you're like,
And provide for other people's children. We talked
Exactly.
about this on the Black Tax
it's
episode.
not balancing. So you're like, yo, like, do you want me to have kids, but it's not balancing? I'm not going to get that support.
Yeah.
You know, the village support.
Yeah.
I'm supporting you, actually, matter of
Yeah,
fact.
yeah.
And then I have to take care of a child, keep myself sane,
Yeah.
whilst also keeping a relationship going and also a career thriving. So I can pay for all this.
Yes. And I think we've realized that village costs money. Like, you can't have it naturally. So the only way to try obtain it is to pay, right? And I feel like it's such a confronting thought.
Yeah.
That you want to go on a date night to get a babysitter. What are you doing? But you're not going to just be able
Yes.
to be like, mom, dad, come and babysit, you know? So it's like all these things that our parents, for example, would take for granted are serious things we have to consider.
And, you know, if things were better, you'd almost have the support of them saying, I will, you know,
Yeah.
take care of, or I will help set up that trust for your
Yeah,
child.
yeah.
I will, but it's not like that.
not like
We're
that.
not fortunate like
No,
that. And
no.
you're,
We're not at that level yet. We might we're striving to be, but definitely a lot of things pull us back. And even visas, right? Because you know,
Yes.
like, even if my parents want to come here and help, I'm like, okay, do I get them a 3-month visa? That's the only one that's like freely available. Well, not
Yes,
freely, but
but
easily
easy.
available.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, but it's only 3 months. That's gonna go. Like when you're taking care of a kid, you want someone for years upon
Yeah,
years.
for sure.
You know, so it's like even in that, then looking at the investment of like those year visas is like the cost, so it's like so prohibitive. Even if you do have people who are willing and can be that village,
Yes.
it ends up coming down to money.
And then how does it feel for you as a mom when you see other people with their villages?
Oh, girl.
And that's something that I don't think we really talk about, where you see people who maybe have never had the experience of being separated from community, and they automatically, for me, it was when I was a teacher and I would see grandparents come, like swapping, like grandparents from the mom's side coming to drop off in the morning, or the grandparents from the dad's side coming to pick up in the afternoon, showing up for plays, the mom coming this time, like just that rotation and that closeness and cousins and proximity. And you see that things we were fortunate to have growing up that have now
so
since
standard.
become, how do you feel?
The heartbreak you feel like at the daycare where Jerome goes to, they have grandparents' day, and you come and read, and the heartbreak you feel when your kid doesn't have someone to represent them.
Yes.
Then you think, okay, do I go? But I'm not a
Yes.
grandparent. And then, you know, like, is thankfully with Australia being so full of migrants, you know your kid is not the only one. There's going to be
True.
another kid there, and they're probably going to sit there in solidarity as the kids who don't have grandparents. But it's still heartbreaking. You know, there's a different heartbreak, of course, for those who don't have grandparents at all.
Yes.
But when you do have them, but they're not there, there's also a heartbreak for
Yes.
that, where it's like, I couldn't even, you know, try to facilitate this, you know. And then you hold on to the little moments when you go visit family, or so I feel like people don't know how good they have it
Yes.
until you know how good you have it. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Until you hear someone else saying, how are you handling this? Like they're going on and on about, oh, my mom can only do pickup and not this. And I'm like, well, at least she's there, you know. And it's hard to have those conversations with people, right? And not sound bitter. But you're not bitter. You're just stating facts. You know,
Yeah.
that, for me, it's completely set up differently.
It's that privilege we
Yeah,
spoke about. It's
it
a
definitely
privilege
is.
that sometimes you're not aware of until you're aware of. Like someone else says, "Oh, that's not normal for me."
Yeah. And then,
Yes.
like, even when you're talking about people commenting on whether to give a sibling or not, you're like, well, I want them to be in touch with their German or Zimbabwean side. That's going to cost.
Yes.
So now it's like either I give them a sibling and they never see their actual other family.
Yeah.
And not to mention the fact that, do you actually want another child in the house? But even just the logistics and finances around that. And people talk to you as if you've not considered it. And you're
Yeah.
like,
I really think people move around in this world thinking that them saying to you, "Oh, you better have a kid soon because, like time is running out," like you do not know that.
yeah. And like, I have thought about that. And this is
Yeah.
how, and I feel like also there's this whole trench mentality, whether it's to have kids or not have kids,
Yes.
where it's like, I've made this decision. You make the same as me.
So we
And
can be in it
yeah, so we can be in
together.
it together. No sense of.
But you ain't gonna
we
be up at
all-
1 a.m. But that's a topic for another day. And so, with blended families now more common in modern society, or other forms of parenting like fostering, adoption, black tax, which really is like raising other people, you know,
Kids.
taking care of other family members and so on and so forth. Is there a need to have kids of our own, given this plethora of responsibility that we've been well endowed with and blessed with in our modern society?
Practically, I'd probably say no, you don't need to, right? I'm sure there's lots and lots of kids that need loving homes.
Yes.
But I think it's going back to your point. There's something innate in us to have your own, if possible.
Yeah.
So I think that's why we always revert to it. People who do end up adopting or fostering or bonus moms or, it's almost happenstance, like it just happens.
Yeah.
Or after they've had a few of their own,
Yeah.
then they think, oh, I really like doing this. Let me now look into other. But our first point of call is always
Yeah.
your own.
For sure.
And I don't know if that's a genetic, trying to keep your own genes going,
or not.
or it's, but yeah, there's no need.
There's
really.
no need. But I do think the fact that we've come from the Stone Age or Adam and Eve, whatever you believe, to this point, and we continue to procreate. I think it speaks to the non-logical aspect of us as humans. I think we over intelligize, if that's a word.
Yeah.
Like we really look at ourselves as really educated and informed,
Yeah.
but we often ignore the sort of animalistic
The primal.
aspects of ourselves, which is relationship
Yeah.
and the need for relation, and that we are wired to want to have these connections. And I think, speaking on our other episode on the internet and connection, I think we do desire that human one-on-one interaction, even though the society makes it feel like we don't need it.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I think that decision sometimes doesn't make logical sense, because I've been pondering this, like, why do we have kids? Why do we want kids?
Yeah.
Why do I want kids? Do I want kids?
How can I have
How
kids?
can I have kids? Like, but I think ultimately sometimes the answer isn't logical.
No.
And I think sometimes you try to over complicate
Analyze it.
and analyze a decision that comes from it's just something that
Yeah. Something that is. Yeah.
and it's scary because humans, we always want the reason, but why? But why? But why? And science has told us that we always need to know the why. And so I think if you feel it in you that maybe I could be a parent, or I think this would be nice, or if you fall into it sometimes, right? It's like then you're just forced into that.
Yeah.
But I think if for centuries we've continued this,
It's like why, but then also why not,
yeah,
right?
why not? Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's fun being an aunt. I'll
Yes.
say I enjoy
I
that.
still enjoy being more of an aunt than a mom at
it's a lot of fun.
But it's also fun being a mom. Like there's definitely some aspects of it where I'm like, you get to be a kid again. You get
True.
to the things I used to stress about. Now I'm just like,
So chill.
yeah.
I'm sure you look at me like,
and it's
girl,
just,
calm
I don't
down.
know. It's just it gives. But having said that, that's my journey. There's some people who find it highly strong. So it's such a thing because as I was saying at the top of the episode, if people know now, would they? And some people honestly
They're like,
probably
nah,
can't,
B.
or probably can't without that village we spoke of.
Yeah.
to make it work.
Anyway, well, I don't know if this conversation helped you decide whether or not you want to have kids. If you do, it might be too late. If not, good luck. But I think it's just
And you can also be rich auntie vibes with
for
nothing
sure,
wrong with that
for sure.
either.
Every kid needs to be spoiled.
Yes.
Yeah, so-
Yes. 'Cause I think, look, if you're rich auntie vibes or whatever, not having kids, and you worry for your future thinking you'll be alone, invest on those relationships now.
True. That's actually really true. Yeah.
There's a lot of kids out there who do want
Need that
those
support,
connections.
yeah.
And again, family is not always blood, so there is
Yeah.
avenues
For
to
doing
enjoy
that.
community
Yeah.
without actually. And sometimes I am very envious of people sleeping in.
Yeah.
So enjoy it.
Yeah. for
Definitely.
sure. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Catch you on the next episode.
Bye.